war in Ukraine has begun. Just minutes after Russian President Vladimir Putin announced a special military operation.
It was unprovoked, but this is what Russian President Vladimir Putin unleashed on Ukraine as the sun came up this morning. A missile striking an industrial park in western Ukraine. A helicopter assault on an airport outside of Kiev. Close, intense fighting. And there are civilian casualties.
Major news. After days on a razor's edge, Ukraine is now a nation at war. Just hours ago, Russian forces began their attack. President Vladimir Putin warning other countries that any attempt to interfere with the Russian action will lead to, quote, consequences they have never seen.
How does the war in Ukraine link to the energy crisis? Ever since the war in Ukraine, most of Europe has dropped Russia from importing anything, and that includes coal and gas. Russia is the biggest exporter of gas in the entire world, exporting 241 billion cubic meters. Why is this concerning? Well, on March 8th of 2022, it was announced that the United Kingdom would transfer away from Russian oil and oil products by the end of 2022. This created a massive spike in September of 2022 when the UK officially imported no gas or coal from Russia. This has since caused a massive spike in prices for all citizens. In 2021, UK reported that it generates nearly 35% of all electricity via fossil fuels. Since the UK produces a large margin of their electricity through fossil fuels, it is seeing the consequences brought on heavily through the price of gas increasing. With such an increase in electricity prices, many UK residents have been forced to cut back on all types of energy consumption, even if that means no heating for the winter. If fossil fuels are so expensive to keep using, then the question has to be, what method of power production should we use? As of 2020, the EU has used renewable energy for about 33% of their power production, 14.3% wind power, 13.5% for hydroelectricity, and 5.2% for solar power. You would think these renewable energies would be used in a much higher percentage, especially with the many environmental benefits compared to fossil fuels. But these renewable energies also have their downsides. With each of the aforementioned methods of power production, there are still carbon emissions being released. That isn't the only downside, though. Another large disadvantage of using these methods are their extremely low capacity factor. The capacity factor is basically what percent of the year an energy source can produce maximum power. Hydroelectric has the highest capacity factor of the bunch with 41.5%. Then it's wind at 35.4%, and at the very bottom, solar with a saddening 24.9%. Another alternative could be thermal electricity, which uses heat from below the Earth's crust to generate electricity. But sadly, that has its downsides as well. Thermal electricity is very location dependent, which means it has to be located in just the right place to even generate electricity, and it also does not travel very well. That leaves us with one more option: nuclear electricity. Nuclear electricity has pretty much no downsides with no carbon emissions, a very high capacity factor at 92.5%, and no harmful waste. Any waste the nuclear power plant produces will either get reused for more fuel or stored completely safely in a cement container that is completely safe to hug. Overall, nuclear energy is the only safe and reliable route that the modern world has to be able to sustain the current energy demand and hopefully reduce global warming.